And on a less happy note, a scathing new Wall Street Journal editorial today calls this the worst recovery from a recession ever, pointing to the fact that the unemployment rate has now stayed above 9% for the last 14 months, which is actually worse than it was during the recession. So which party has the best solution on the jobs front? This has become a white-hot issue leading up to these midterms, and it was a hot question in a recent debate that sort of teed it up on a national level between Republican Linda McMahon and Democrat Dick Blumenthal, who are both candidates for Senate in the state of Connecticut.
How do you create a job?
A job is created, and it can be in a variety of ways, by a variety of people, but principally by people and businesses in response to demand for products and services. And the main point about jobs in Connecticut is we can and we should create more of them by creative policies.
Government, government, government. Government does not create jobs. It's very simple how you create jobs. An entrepreneur takes a risk. He or she believes that he creates a goods or service that is sold for more than it costs to make it. And if an entrepreneur thinks he can do that, he creates a job.
Well, unlike any other, that really got to the heart of the issue that's concerning a lot of Americans right now, and that is the staggering unemployment rate. Jonah Goldberg is a Fox News contributor and editor-at-large of National Review Online, and Nancy Skinner is a syndicated radio talk show host. They're both my guests now. All right, so that, that moment, that little moment has turned into sort of this ongoing theme as we ramp up to these midterms, and is put back on the front burner to their credit. The issue that most Americans really care about, which is jobs. You can talk about whether the Republicans are using money that they're not disclosing and whatever. Jobs, that's what people care about. That's clear. So, Jonah, when people go to pull the lever in the ballot box, does that debate actually accurately tee up the philosophical differences between Republicans and Democrats on that?
Well, in some sense it does, in some sense it doesn't. Historically, fairly or unfairly, presidents get employment rates are very high. And that is true when the presidents deserve the blame and they don't. I happen to think Obama deserves a good share of the blame, but regardless of whether he does or not, presidents tend to get punished for that kind of thing. I think what we are seeing actually, though, is a really great test sample that goes back to the New Deal. Remember, Obama came in basically promising a second New Deal. The New Deal didn't help very much with unemployment either. And it turns out that these policies, which create uncertainty in the business area, and make everyone afraid to hire new people, particularly because there are more entitlements that come with hiring new people, is just deadly for employment rates. And I think Obama is going to deserve to get the shellacking that he's going to get because of it.
Nancy, there has been a bit of a sort of a fundamental ideological divide between the parties on how do you stimulate the economy and how do you create jobs. The Republicans, from Reagan to Bush on down, have said lower the tax burden and basically get out of the way, make it easy for the corporations. And then you have Democrats who sort of think, well, let's help. Let's sort of tax the rich, and that'll sort of funnel down, and then it'll help the middle class. And really, more government involvement is a good thing. Can you make that case?
Well, the way it's supposed to work, how do you create a job, is an entrepreneur takes a risk and starts a business, or a company hires more people because there's greater demand out there and they need to hire more people. Or the best way to get a job is to marry a rich guy like Linda McMahon did. But
oh, come on, come on.
Come on, I had to get that. But listen, Megyn. When there's a recession, the government can facilitate a recovery, because when that entrepreneur can't get a loan, he's done. And when there's no demand, so for the company, then the government can stimulate demand through a variety of ways. And I would even go further and say the government, in some ways, it's mostly private sector, but the government has created jobs. They do research at the NIH that has created drugs and supplies, and NASA has invented technologies like all kinds of solar and microwave technologies that have created whole industries. So there's no black and white. It's only business without any help from the government.
I think that's interesting what you're saying, Jonah, because
without any help from business.
Let me jump in. I think that's interesting because she started, Jonah, by saying an entrepreneur takes a risk. And in order for an entrepreneur to be willing to do that, you've pointed out they need certainty. And that's something that we are lacking right now.
That's right. You just don't know where the government is going to go next. You don't know what they're going to tax next. And look, if we want to argue about industrial policy and
no,
the federal government The federal government invented
Industrial
Tang.
policy. My eyes are glazing over immediately.
Exactly. Topic boring, losing consciousness. But the simple reality is that what Obama promised wasn't more funding for NIH and the spin-offs from NASA, which he's basically shutting down anyway. What he promised was that the stimulus was going to do something to create jobs. The stimulus basically made things worse. The unemployment rate got worse after the stimulus. The stimulus, rather than actually being the proper Keynesian thing that liberals are supposed to believe in about stimulating demand, was instead a basically giant wealth transfer payment to teachers' unions and to a whole bunch of programs that Democrats felt were unfunded for a very long time. It didn't have much stimulus effect. It did help the industry that makes those signs saying this road brought to you by the stimulus, but beyond that, it didn't do much.
Nancy, this is the point that John Lott makes in the Wall Street Journal. He talks about how the president claims we've made some progress, but we're not where we need to be. But don't kick us out yet because we're sort of in the middle of the job. This is what Lott writes in the Wall Street Journal. He says, this ignores the fact that since Obama became president, the unemployment rate has increased faster than 25 of the 30 other countries that The Economist magazine had data for from 2009 to 2010. Many of these countries refused to follow the U.S.'s massive government spending solution despite pressure from Obama, his theory being you can't spend your way out of this, as these other countries who have gotten out of their messes much faster than we've gotten out of ours have proven.
Unfortunately, we had to spend as the country with the greatest wealth to get the whole world out of this, and we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. With stimulus, yeah, I mean, that's part of the stimulus, and TARP and the banks and all of that. A lot of that fell on the United States. I'm on the front line of business creation. I run a business accelerator incubator called Next Wave in Michigan. So I know what small businesses need. They come to me with great ideas, and the one thing that they cannot get, the hardest thing, and we work with them, is to get financing, funding. Banks aren't lending to them. We have to get very creative. That entrepreneur isn't worried about what his tax rate, Jonah, is going to be in 5 years. He's worried if he can
but aren't
get
they?
the loan.
But wait. But let me just challenge it. Aren't they?
Invention.
Because I have to tell you, just speaking from personal experience, I have a brother who's a small business owner, and yeah, I'm sure he'd love to get loans from the bank because now his business is hurting, thanks to the recession. But he is, I can tell you, worried about the tax rate. He's very worried about that, and he's worried about where his customers are going to come from, and he's worried about the uncertainty that he's facing going into the new year.
He's also worried about the mandates that come with Obamacare. And let's stipulate that you're right about no small businessmen are actually worried about tax rates, which I find implausible. Why did Obama, if the important thing was creating this demand and helping with these jobs and getting loans out there, invest the vast majority of his political capital for his first year in office on a health care program that the majority of the American people said they didn't want? That was a huge waste, a distraction from the economy he says he's trying to fix.
Quickly, Nancy, I gotta run.
The reason is because that is the biggest drag on the economy, our long-term deficits. It is the healthcare system, and small businesses will get tax credits to provide it for their people so they're healthy and work and we can have a productive economy.
All right,
That's
guys.
why I did it.
Thank you both. We appreciate it. Listen, it's obviously an important issue, and you got to know sort of where both sides stand, and you guys have offered that perspective. Thank you both, Jonah and Nancy.